All right, welcome to Max Effort Kitchen. We are live on Instagram and YouTube. Again, it actually worked. I am your host, Matt. This is my co-host, good friend Cornell, also known as the People's Master. And I didn't tell you this last time, but I lifted with Donald on Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve. And he was like, I think Cornell's new name needs to be the People's Professor. And he was talking about it. He was like, man, that guy knows more about recovery and just like weightlifting than anybody. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll throw that out there, see what happens. So you might be the People's Professor as well.
That'd be kind of funny. I got to lift yesterday with my friend Kyle, and it was kind of funny because to me, I'm just me. Like to you, or to me, you're just you. It's
Right.
not like,
Right.
oh my gosh. But he was like, no, you're like famous. I'm like, what? No, I'm just some old guy who's been doing this for a long time. He's like, no, like it all started back in weightlifting house when you asked that question. So for people who don't know, I asked a question a very, very long time ago, like 2017 or 18. I think 18.
Okay.
On the Patreon. And I asked an honest question and I said, hey, I've got a 195 kilo front squat and a 200 kilo back squat. Should I focus on my back squat or just accept that I'm good at front squatting? And they basically ripped me apart nicely. And they're like, oh, he's probably just one of those guys who can squat a lot, but I bet he's not snatching more than like maybe 100 kilos, probably more like 85 to 90. And he's probably like a 125, 130 clean and jerker. And that's just kind of how he's built. And then I was like, oh, really?
Oh,
and then when it came on, I remember exactly where I was on the freeway, and I got off the freeway to go someplace, and I immediately sent them videos of my 140 snatch and my 160 clean and jerk. And then the next episode, they're like, oh yeah, that guy Cornell, we were way off.
That's funny.
And then they actually answered my question.
Yeah, there you go. It's like you had to prove yourself a little bit. No, it's funny because the last time they talked about you, because there's been a couple shows recently where your question has come up, and they were like, they said something. No, this wasn't a question. They were just talking about, getting old and still lifting, and if it's doable to hit big weights. And I think Josh said something about like, well, Cornell George, he's up there, and they both thought you were in your late 30s.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think that they listen to this, but just in case they do, Cornell, you are how old? 41?
I'm almost 42.
You're almost 42.
March,
yeah.
I'll be 42.
There you go. I mean, 42 years old, and you're totaling over 300 pounds. That's what I meant. It's a Saturday. It's the middle of the day, and holy crap, I can't believe I just said that.
That's right.
Yeah, no, I think you're in a really good spot, and it's funny because people, there's this stipulation that once you get old, you can't lift, and I'm not going to talk too much about this documentary because you haven't watched it yet, and I want to actually talk to you about it after you watch it. But the Final Attempt docuseries, I think the episode 5 just dropped in December, and it's been something that we've been watching as a household. I've watched it twice now, and we like it. But they're all pretty young, and there's a comment by one of the lifters where she's like, "I'm a grown woman. I'm 24 years old," and I'm thinking. Like
you're a grown child.
Yeah, you're a grown child. Yes. But at 24, and she's been to the Olympics, and she's done multiple quads and all this stuff. Like if she kept with lifting, which she was actually pretty upfront about how she her run is coming to an end.
Who is this?
But Kate Vibrant.
Okay.
And she talks about how like this is her last run and all this stuff. But if she were to keep going, like, Do you think that she would have the ability to be able to total high at the age of 45? Or do you think that people like you and us that got into the sport later, like I didn't start till 37, I think. Um, like, do you think that plays a big part in like what, we are lifting versus what somebody who started at 18?
So somebody told me this a long time ago, like nearly when I started, probably the first year, is they were a little bit older than me. And I think I had snatched at that point around 115-ish. And they were
Okay.
like, man, I wish I could have seen what you lifted when you were like, I wish I could have seen you as an athlete when you were 22. I'm like, I didn't do anything. I did wakeboarding in the summer and I did snowboarding in the winter. And that was
Right.
it.
Right.
And then someone else said, well, there's generally people can either lift a lot when they're young or they can lift a lot when they're old, but they can't do both. Because generally, if you do it when you're young and these people are going balls to walls.
Right.
And their goal is the Olympics. Their goal is to set these like national and world records and make these teams and do all these things. And they're willing to sacrifice what the rest of their life is going to be down the road.
Mm-hmm.
The bummer is realistically, I don't think these people know what that means. And it's going to be sad for a lot of these people, in my opinion, because they don't understand that I'm thinking of Ryan Grimsland, for example.
Okay.
That guy weighs nothing and lifts so much weight. And I'm not saying it's terrible technique, but it's very crashy. And I'm always shocked he's not folding in half.
Right. Right.
He's, I think, 21 or 22 years old. He's got 60 plus years ahead of him. And he's not taking into account that. So, and I think right now, because what I told these people when I was talking to them is I'm like, I'm glad I didn't do this when I was younger, because I was what do they call it? Pedal to the floor, pedal to the metal, like for everything I did in snowboarding and wakeboarding. And I was injured so many times with that kind of stuff. But the real nice part with that combo of sports is you have a forced 2 to 3 months between seasons.
Right.
Where you're going to recover. And I think I could have just been one of those idiots who just didn't care about the future. And like, I'm already beat up enough. I can't imagine having 15 years of weightlifting, being that young and really not caring. So,
and kind of what I hear you talking about is as you're like saying this stuff and it like totally makes sense. I was in the same boat where I went balls to the wall in football for a good portion of my youth life, and then pretty much stopped for about 5 years of doing anything because of how beat up I was. But there's also the aspect of, for most people, maturity. Maturity and understanding when to lift and when not to lift, understanding when to take lifts, understanding how to approach technique. I would imagine, and this could be a complete ignorant statement, but I would imagine that somebody at that age, and I'm just going to say between the ages of 18 and 24, at that age, you have a coach and your coach is telling you exactly what to do. Like, you're not making your own decisions for the most part, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And so, then you fast forward to, lifters of our age, where we have to make our own decisions. We have to be the people that regulate, the self-regulators of ourselves. We have to pick our programmings. We have to pick the people we lift with. We have to pick the food we eat. We have to make the food we eat. like it's a whole different ball game. And that's kind of why when I'm looking at like international lifting versus what we do, like, to me, it's a whole different sport. Like it's professional versus amateur, right?
Sure.
But when you get to that professional level, there's a whole different aspect of like life. And one thing I noticed in that documentary, and is exactly what you just said, they get beat up. I mean, it's every 12 weeks they're at an international or even national competition, and they're trying to qualify, and they're a session, and they're battling like It's pretty cool. I'm looking forward to seeing and hearing, what you think of it when you do watch it and all that. I mean, you can get through it. And if you went back to back, like you get through it in probably like 2.5 hours. It'd be like watching a movie.
Okay.
But like the first time I watched it, I watched a couple episodes on my own. And then I went back and, told Alana about it. And I was like, so you should watch this, check it out. And so she started watching it. Then the kids came in and we all watched it all the way through again. So that was cool.
Nice.
But it's interesting. It is interesting. And you feel the burn from what they are doing. And the coaches talk about it. So that's probably part of it. But enough about that. So let's see. Last episode of 2023. I'm not going to make it too big of a deal about it, but it's been a pretty good year. How about yourself?
Yeah, it was. So let me see. What's today's date? Today's the 30th.
Yes.
1 year ago tomorrow, I left my old weightlifting team.
Yep.
Actually, I think you did too.
I was same day. Yes.
Not intentional, but it just
not
happened
at all.
to be that way. So I have had a lot of reflection of last year versus this year, and just the differences and the relationships that have been built, the relationships that I thought were real friendships that turned out were absolutely not. And I am in such a better headspace now than I was a year ago. I think that was just there was a lot of pressure to compete, a lot of pressure to do well, a lot of pressure to basically like just make the coach happy.
Yeah.
And there was no making that coach happy when it really came down to it. And then now being in the situation where I am now, it's like complete opposite. It's like everyone is just happy to be around. We're all stoked to lift together. Like when you guys come down, it's always like, you've seen how it is.
Yeah.
Open arms. It's not like, oh, you're the remote people. It's like, cool. Are you going to come more often?
Yeah. Like, when are we going to see you next?
And I talked to my wife a couple days ago and I said, I was gone for, I believe, 7 days this year for weightlifting.
Yeah.
I was 2 days in Kentucky, 2 days in Portland, and then 2 or 3 days in Pleasanton.
Yeah.
For AO2.
Yep.
That was it. Last year, I was gone for 54 days for weightlifting.
That's crazy.
And not only was I gone for 54 days, but I didn't do everything. And I was guilted about not doing everything that I was expected to do.
Correct.
In places I was expected to be at.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that's interesting.
Big time different year. And then Kayla was all excited and she's like, oh yeah, actually, I didn't even think about it. This has been great. And I'm like, well, next year I'm going to travel a little more.
Boom. Dude. Well, I similar boat. Somebody asked me, like, a friend of mine that also, he dabbles in weightlifting. He doesn't compete or anything, but he was like, so like, how was your year? And I was like, it's like a year of transition. And that's what it was. And, like when I started in weightlifting, I did start on the same team as you were just spoke of. And like, that's all I knew. And so when I made the decision to leave that team, it was like, okay, well, it's like when you I don't want to compare it to anything weird, but like, it's just like when you go out on your own, when you get a new apartment. Oh, all right. I get to decorate my own place. Or I get to, put the couch in the bedroom if I want to. And that's kind of what it was for a couple months, was like, okay, well, I'm going to figure out like what I'm going to do here. So I'm just going to lift, have fun, and not to worry too much about it. I did make a big proclamation that I wasn't doing any national events last year, and I didn't. I did a couple local events, and that was fun. Focused on the podcast more, and just like really, I took this past year as just like to learn and to actually see and understand different points of views, different perspectives, different realms of this sport. And I'll tell you, like, I've barely even like touched the iceberg. Like, it's it's cool. And I'm gonna echo what you said. Like, I'm in such a better place right now. Like I don't know. There used to be such a negative feel about like lifting in my garage and all that. And now I'm like, there's nowhere I'd rather live. Like, I really enjoy it. Now, do I like getting out to other gyms? Absolutely. But like maybe it's just the time and place I'm in now, but like, I love lifting in my garage right now. And it's a lot of fun. And I feel like it was a good transition and a good learning experience. And it just, leveled up a little bit more in the sport. It was fun. It was good.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. And I don't want to like cause any drama or whatever, but I did feel very validated. I'm not going to drop names or anything, but that team shut down. The coach gave up and he quit because in the reality of it, it wasn't a healthy team.
Yeah.
And the leader moved on. And I mean, I hope that all the lifters who were there are going to kind of have their eyes opened a little bit and move on and see what the rest of the world actually is like, not through the tainted view, but it did feel a little bit validating when it ended. And it was like, okay, that book is officially closed now. So
yeah. And that way of looking at that, people think everything, I live by this statement, and I don't say it very often, but everything in life happens for a reason, and it is what it is. And you find your way, you make your shit happen. And if it doesn't work out, then you move on. Yeah. And that's what I kind of felt that was a really positive part in my life and in lots of people's lives I know as well. So I'm going to do just what I just said, and we'll move on past that. But 2024, man, it's coming. It's 2 days away. And like, I would like to sit here and be like, yeah, I got all this stuff planned, but I got one thing on my mind right now. And I can't tell you how excited I am for it. And that's Masters Nationals. Like, I am so pumped. Like, my session last night was like, all right, this is like, day -1, because my day 1 is going to be, Tuesday or Monday. Sorry. And I'm starting this journey of like getting ready for a pretty big event that I did fairly well at the last time I went. I lifted in a session, took 5th, and I was set up to take 3rd. If I would have made my jerk, maybe I would have, but I did not. So, so I'm looking forward to it. I'm gonna have, obviously, you said you were gonna be there if you can make it, which I think you are. And then we're gonna have Stephanie. I think Ryan is gonna be there, and so like I'm excited about that aspect of it. It's about the community, the Masters community. Like, I'm super stoked about that. Like, I love seeing people that I've interviewed on here or even talked to through online, and just like that's my main focus right now. And I'm super excited. And so that kind of brings me to this idea that I had, Cornell. And this is going to be an interesting one. And I'll be interested to see the reaction. So I had a thought, as I was watching this documentary, and I was like, how cool would it be to like, and I'm sure people have done this, but like document like 90 days out to a major competition, right? Mm-hmm. And document every day, like a day in the life of what it takes to prepare up to a national event, and then how you compete, and then kind of a recap. Like, that would be a fun little experiment. Now, here's the other side of that experiment. So let's do one. How I just regular lead up everything. And then you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. And then I want to find another national event 90 days out, and let's do it dirty. Let's document what it's like to do it dirty. Take the 2-year sanction that you're probably going to get when you get tested. But then you have like straight up data of the difference in what it would be like. Cause I always I'm wondering what would it be like, and like how much of an edge is it? And like, and then put that out there and be like, you know what? I fully accept my 2 years sanction. Like I knew this, obviously don't talk about it leading up because they probably wouldn't, maybe they, I don't know if they would let you compete if like you were outwardly spoken about it. I don't know.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't either. But like, holy crap, how freaking crazy would that be?
I mean, they let Lasha compete.
Oh boy, I don't know. I think of some crazy things, especially when I'm, in the middle of my training sessions and I got a lot of caffeine in me. But I don't know.
That would be a very interesting thing to do and document. From what I heard is, I think Ian Wilson. I knew somebody who was on our team who got to know Ian pretty well through text messages and phone calls, and was actually getting like a little bit of programming from him and video analysis and that kind of thing. And
okay,
don't reach out to Ian and ask for these things because he won't do it for anybody.
Yeah, but, totally.
I think he took this one person. I'm not even going to say who or what their assumed gender is. But took him under his wing like a little chicken, and I think he just was like, this guy, if you know who he was, it's the perfect situation.
Okay.
And I think he was planning on doing, or he had like a bunch of documented stuff where he was like, I'm taking this, and he was thinking about putting it out there, but I could be way off.
Yeah.
It was a couple years ago when all that stuff kind of came out.
Right. I don't know. I just, I mean, selfishly, I would love to see the effects of it. And I don't know. Maybe I'm being irresponsible because of what it would do to your health, but people are doing it all the time. I mean, it's out there and it's everywhere. So I don't know, just a kind of a funny conversation or kind of funny thought in my head. I am going to do my best to document, what I'm eating every day, my sleep and all of that stuff. That's for a selfish reason, because I want to be able to go back and say, hey, how did I do this? I did this way this time, and this is how I performed. Maybe if I take and, switch it up a little bit, or maybe get an hour or two more sleep, or eat, switch up my meals, or, switch some training areas, like how did that affect my overall outcome in the performance? And, I think that using data is kind of a buzzword in a way, because, we lift how we lift on any given day. I mean, we've talked about this before, like personally, I think this came from my early success in football, but like personally, I am a game day type person. I try, when I train, I'm consistent and I work hard. I don't always lift well in training. And I think that's pretty normal. But like when it comes to training or the game day, even if I'm hurt, I'm still trying to perform. And like, that's kind of like in my work ethic, but like, what do you think about that?
No, I think that game day that's always going to be a coin flip. Yeah. You have pretty good odds that you should be okay, but it's still probably going to be, there's still a lot of luck involved.
Yeah.
Especially being a master. I've said this before, like you don't know if your peak is going to be the day of competition, the Friday before, or the Friday after.
Nice.
Like one of those 3 days will be a very good day.
This is true.
But I think that oftentimes people are getting tired and they're missing lifts leading up to the meet, but that's when you're starting the peak, and that's when your body is broken down and when you aren't supposed to be feeling good. Yeah. And then once you taper it back, that's when you have a nice little recovery, and then you can really put that last bit on the line and let it go. And hopefully that all works out on the right day at the right time with everything you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I mean, you're right. It's there's a timing thing, and it's just based off of how your body, but I just wonder, I guess where that comes from is wondering how much as athletes, like how much we can actually like manipulate the end process, like
Sure.
the results, like how much control do we really have? Because I mean, especially lately, I've been hearing a lot of podcasts talking about like programming and,
Mhm.
the way that they're trained and how many days you're training and how you're training and what you're doing in training. But like, I mean, we all know the quote, a program is only as good as the athlete, right? It's only as good as who's doing it. Like it could be
Yeah.
the greatest one in the world, but like if you're not consistent on it, it's not going to be successful. So like we don't really like the program is the program. It's already written down. The control is how we perform it. But like outside of that, we have control on our sleep, our eating, the drugs we take or don't take or whatever. But like, I just wonder how much control, and I don't know. These kind of things pop in my head.
Yeah, I think some of the other stuff is I'm personally, I'm not a data person like at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I did function for over a year without a program.
Mhm.
Just kind of doing it based on how I felt. And I didn't do bad. I didn't accelerate, but I didn't get worse. And I got very consistent with the weights I was able to hit.
Yeah.
But a lot of people put so much belief in the program, but the program, so like, for example, a program for, let's say, Wes Kitts, him and I are in the same weight classes.
Okay.
Like we both go up and down.
Right.
Whatever his program is, I would be ruined on. I can almost guarantee. And
you got 20 years on him, right?
Well, it has a lot to do with a lot of different things. Yeah. But if you look at how much volume he's doing and how he doesn't, well, he has a more normal job now. I think he's a gym owner, but
yeah,
leading into the last quad, he didn't have a real job. His job was to recover. His job was to do all that kind of stuff. That program with his coach got him to the Olympics.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what that program was. That program would not work for me.
Right.
Like I would break. I would probably die. I would not be able to function. I wouldn't be able to get it done. So it's much more than, it's not just the program. It's the program plus the person. Do those two things add up?
Well, and okay. So, and I wrote this down pre-show and I didn't say it when we talked about it, but like that actually brings up a question that I was going to pose to you is like, okay. And maybe we'll and I'll put it in terms of like what you just said, like take your life and say someone walked up to you today and said, hey, listen, I'm going to pay you your monthly salary. I'm going to make sure you have food. I'm going to make sure that you have the money you need. And I want you to train for, 4 years.
Okay.
And I want to see, what you can do. And I'm going to make sure, and I'm going to coach you and I'm going to make sure you have money. And you're not going to have any responsibilities outside of, maybe your family. Right. And do you think you could perform that at that point?
At the age that I am, that would be the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Like I think Wes Kitts is about 30.
Okay.
So I know that he has the amount of like reps and weight that his joints have taken are much more than mine are.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I'm almost 42 years old. My knees are 42 years old. My shoulders are 42 years old. It's, I do have 25% more time. Actually, I just learned about this. I have 33% more wear and tear on my body than he does.
Interesting. How did you figure that out?
Well, he's 30. Let's say 30 and I'm 40.
Okay.
So for him to get from 30 to 40 is 33% more time.
Interesting.
For me to go from 40 to 30 is taking away 25%.
Okay. That makes sense.
But I have that much more wear and tear just on my body in general. So I don't know if I could necessarily do everything that is being put out there. I could do a whole lot more, but I don't think I could necessarily be doing double and triple days and all that kind of a thing.
Yeah. It's an interesting thought. And I think that you take, it just shows that age plays that much in what's going on. And it's like, And that kind of go back to my little stupid social experiment that like, what if somebody, what if somebody came to you and said same thing, but here, like what's that documentary on Netflix? Ichabod or no? Icarus,
Yeah.
where they were like, we're going to basically give you a doctor that's going to make sure that you can take all the right, drugs to be able to perform the way that everybody else is. Do you think that has I wonder, and this is a lot of thinking on this podcast, but like, I wonder, like, if that plays a part in age as well, like, how would that, I wonder, it's just, these questions pop in my head because I'm just like, I mean, when I watch international lifting, I really start thinking about the age old, like, debate of like American lifters are clean and all these international lifters are not. And so, and that's a very broad statement. I know that, but at the end of the day, like, is there really anybody in this sport that's actually clean, do you think?
I had this conversation with Kyle a little bit yesterday. There's a guy I've listened to on a handful of podcasts. Like, anything drug related is always so entertaining because you're like, you have that, you listen to things and in your brain, you're like, oh, what if I did this? And what if I did try that? And would I be a superhero and all this kind of stuff? I don't remember his name, but he goes by the Evil Genius, and he's self-admitted that he's on the spectrum and he is very obsessive over things, and he's basically committed his whole life to drugs in sport. He said 25% of his clients are weightlifters.
Yeah.
And he said it. I'm not going to put out there who any of these people are, but I'm not saying they're non-American weightlifters. They are weightlifters.
Right.
And his big thing is he talks about, like, you take different things for different times for different purposes. You take something, if you have an end goal, then you take something. If you're going to do a big volume cycle and you want to get as big as possible, you're going to take one thing. If you want to get really strong and shredded, you're going to take something else. And it's just like a different accessory movement for what is recommended to be taken.
Right.
So I don't even remember why we're talking about this.
Oh, it was because my little project, and because I was posing a question to you about
whether Americans are clean or not, and that type of thing.
Yeah, kind of that. Like, I don't want to go down that road because, I'm not trying to make, any group of person look bad, but I'm just like, I try not to think about it, I guess. What I'm trying to say.
I think, what I was talking with Kyle about yesterday is I said, in my opinion, in every single weightlifter who's been weightlifting long enough could be popped for something, whether they know it or not.
Right.
But there's also a lot of stuff that people do that it's not allowed in competition versus out of competition. And I know a handful of people who've been sanctioned based on marijuana.
Right.
And it's not allowed in competition, and they didn't do it in competition, but they smoked a lot, like, too close to competition where there was still too much in their system.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't mean they were high, but that kind of things happen. When I was in Las Vegas in 2018, I didn't know this. I'm thankfully didn't get tested, but you're not allowed to take Sudafed, the real stuff that's behind the counter, in competition, because there's a part
acetaminophen or whatever.
There's something in there that they use to make meth.
Yep.
And it helps you focus and it helps you concentrate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was having a complete allergy attack. And right before my competition, I went to Target. I bought Sudafed. I popped 2 of them. Immediately, all my symptoms went away.
Right. Right.
And then when I found out after that I would have gotten in trouble if I got drug tested, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I think there's so much stuff that you don't even know, like, that you're not allowed to take.
Well, that's interesting because signing up for this Masters Nationals, I had to renew my USADA Athlete Advantage tutorial training,
Mhm.
whatever. And my computer kept telling me, I think I told you guys this on Polo, but my computer kept telling me that I was only 87% complete. And so I'm like, I couldn't figure out how to complete it. So I went through the whole process like probably 5 times. And so I'm really well versed on how to find out if something's illegal or not. But you know, they make you watch a video in that, and it has a former Olympic athlete talking about how, you know, she had a supplement company approach her and she started taking the supplements and then she got popped because of something that was in that non-regulated supplement. And,
Yeah.
and that just goes to your point of like, you know, you just don't know. Like you could have somebody that is, you know, whatever ADHD and diagnosed with it and everything's legit and their doctor has them on Adderall, you know, that's banned. Like,
Yeah.
that's a performance enhancing drug. And so it kind of sometimes makes me wonder about like, you know, there's so many bans on so many things to try to make this sport so as clean as everybody wants it to be. But there's so many ways around it, and it's just like it's constant like cat and dog battle. Like you know, one you thought is going to come over here and get better testing, and then somebody's going to figure out how to beat that testing, and then you know it's a constant thing. And I wonder what it would be like if they just had a like I've heard that powerlifting has this, where they have a federation that completely understandable. Everybody does it. Everybody knows about it. And then they have a clean one.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder what that would look like.
Yeah. And so back to that evil genius guy, he says it's not clean. It's tested.
It's tested. That's a good point.
So, and he said, like, he said, nothing is clean.
Yeah.
It's tested. It's can you beat a test?
Yeah.
And like, I have a friend who applied for a TUE for, he has narcolepsy. He can fall asleep anytime.
This story's crazy. Yeah.
USAW said they would not give it to him because that's not a life-threatening thing. And so he cannot be on that medicine, and he has to be off of it for like 4 or 6 weeks for it to clear his system before competition. So some of this stuff, like who knows what, I don't think that having something that's going to keep you from falling asleep while driving is going to give you that much of an advantage. And I think especially in masters weightlifting, it's like, this is our hobby.
Yeah. This
needs to not, the rest of your life shouldn't be so affected because you want to do a competition,
right?
That you can't live your life how you're supposed to live the 90% of your life that's not weightlifting.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really, really good way of putting it. It's interesting because especially, you know, masters lifters, you know, we need every piece of anything we can get just to keep on going. And I that's probably an overstatement for me to say that, because we're like you and I, other masters lifters I know, we're pushing hard. We're lifting. We're going to competitions. We're having fun still. I always think about what it's going to be like in my 50s, you know, how the sport's going to transform, because it's going to at some point. Like, yeah, I'm sure I'll still lift, but I would hope to be in the sport in a different realm, maybe, you know, coaching, being a part of a team, being, you know, helping with nutrition on a team, like anything. And that's one thing about like this sport that I really love. And I think you and I have talked about this before, which is like, once you stop being an athlete, like there's so many avenues you can go down to still be a part of the sport. And I think that brings a lot of value to a sport when you can do that. And I think most professional sports probably have that, but I don't think it's as accessible as weightlifting makes it. I mean, I think I forget who I heard this from, but they used to, used to call weightlifting a free market, right? And it kind of is. Like you can just go, and I could go and, you know, start a new line of shoes and start selling them. No regulation there, right? Which is a cool thing. I think I really enjoy that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think one of the other things, I don't, still just on the same topic.
Yeah.
I've had this conversation with some other master lifters where I'm like, you know what? I love this sport for what it is. I don't
Right.
love this sport for competing.
Right.
And eventually, once I'm quote unquote done competing, like I'm probably going to go on some sort of a TRT or something like that, where it's going to allow me to keep doing this sport.
Exactly.
But I'm not going to be able to compete at that point
Right.
because then I'm not allowed to.
Yeah.
But it's one of those dumb things where I can still do what I love. And even though I do enjoy the competition side of it, I enjoy the lifting side of it more than the competing thing.
I completely agree with you on that because it's the daily lifting. It's the people. It's like hitting the numbers. It's talking about it. It's the community. Like, I mean, me, I compete, I think at the most 3 times a year, and I'm okay with that. That works for my life. If I was younger in a different spot and no family and just a job and not a career, then shit, I'd be doing it all the time. That's why I look at what you did 2 years ago and I'm like, man, it's impressive, right? Like, holy crap, this guy has a career, a family, and like he competed almost 11 times throughout the year. Like that, it's pretty cool. But I just think that the lifting part of it is so much more fun than the competing, because when you get into competing, it's like, it's fun. I love doing it. It's like game day, but there's just so much more to it.
Yeah, and I like most of the weightlifting gyms are generally some sort of affiliated or attached to a CrossFit gym.
Yeah.
If you look at your general person in there who's going to be in their upper 40s, 50s, maybe even 60s, if they were on some sort of a TRT or something like that, just going in there 5 days a week, being healthy, people aren't going to be like, oh, that person's cheating. They shouldn't be here. They're gonna be like, this is awesome. Look at them. They're 60 something years old and they're still getting in 5 classes a week, and they're modifying what they need to. I think that's more. I
lost him. Oh no. Oh no.
There you are.
There it is.
Disappeared.
Okay. Yeah, no, it froze for a second there. I was like, oh God, I lost him. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. You know, it's funny because when I was really heavily into CrossFit, there was a gentleman that came in for open gym, and he would go back in the back of the room to the weightlifting area. His name was Jim, and he was probably like 5'4", maybe I think he was 58 years old, and he was preparing for a competition. And I remember looking at my wife and a couple of my friends there, and like after getting to know him a little bit, I'm like, that's the guy I want to be right there. Like I want to be going in and getting an open gym at 59 years old and back there snatching and clean and jerking. Like that is, it was so cool, you know? And I was like, I was what, 35 at the time. And I'm just looking at it like, that's the dude right there. And yeah, I think this sport allows us to do that. So moving on, Cornell, what are you making for New Year's? What kind of food are you eating?
Don't really know even what's kind of going on for New Year's, but I will tell you, on Christmas, I made cinnamon rolls, but what I ended up doing that was a little bit different is I thinly sliced a bunch of apples.
Okay.
And I rolled those into the cinnamon rolls to make an apple cinnamon roll.
Oh.
And that was, I only made it for like probably 3 or 4 of them, but I should have made it for all of them.
Oh yeah, no kidding. That sounds fantastic.
So
nice work, dude. I mean, you know, we always do like every fried food possible, like finger foods. I mean, I'm just deep frying for a hot second in the kitchen and mind you, it's generally only Alana and I that eat the food, but like at the same point, I'm gorging, I'm eating, I might stay up till midnight. It's not something that like It's not a big holiday around here.
Yeah.
We play games. We play old school board games, and that's fun. That's our fun for New Year's.
My daughter was like, I don't want to go to this party because they said that they're going to go till 1 o'clock. And she's like, and then like you guys would have to come pick me up. I'm like, oh, whoa there.
Yeah, we don't want you to go to that either.
I was like, I think you should have friends over here. They can all spend the night.
There you go. Yeah, no, it's one of those holidays that when I was younger, I was always like anticipated and then never was as cool as I thought it was going to be. So now that I'm older, I'm like, you know what? We have fun here and call it a day. I work the next day anyways. So cool, man. I mean, 45 minutes. It's been a great show. I gotta give a shout out because Kilo Pino just jumped on the line. I see him on our Instagram. What's up, Kilo? We did this early show for you, buddy, but we'll try to get some more early shows in. I think this is, I mean, it's a doable time. We could throw it in once or twice a month and see about that. Now that we're like live on all these crazy platforms, this is insane. That is one thing I'm going to do in 2024 is I'm going to figure out a better way to manage my technology.
Okay.
So I'm not typing over here while you're talking because like that's annoying. Anyways, yeah, that's pretty much all I got. You got anything, Cornell?
I can't think of anything.
Solid. Well, everybody, thank you for listening. I hope everybody has a safe and fun holiday. Happy New Year. Get out there, lift some weights, and yeah, that's all I got. I think we'll talk to you all later. Adios.
Bye.